So what kind of nutrients are we getting from this pie? Carbohydrates, right? And a lot of them. So this is going to be one of those kind of things that we just have as a treat once in a while. And what else are we getting from this besides carbohydrates? Fat in the crust, right? So again, lots of calories in this. Okay, there's 1.5 cups of sugar. Now there's something else I'm going to put in this, and it's this item right here. Cornstarch. What is cornstarch going to do for this project, do you think, product? Anybody? Well, cornstarch is used to thicken, right? So I'm going to use this to thicken my solution. And it's calling for 1/3 of a cup plus a tablespoon. Of cornstarch. And what else could I use? If I didn't have cornstarch, what else could I use to thicken? Flour. I could use flour in place of this. Okay? So there's my cornstarch. Then it's telling me that I need to add 1.5 cups of water slowly to this mix. I had the wrong sheet here. And I have that pre-measured out. 1.5 cups. Yeah. And I'm going to add that slowly to this mix. And I'm going to heat this on the top of my stove. So this, if you didn't put it mixed, you know how you can go to the store and you can buy it in a box and all you have to do is add milk. And they have like real easy ones now that you just feed it instantly in it. But you used to have to cook it most of the time. And you still can get pudding that you cook. I prefer that more than the instant kind that you just mix with milk and it's done. But this is the way that you would make pudding at home if you wanted to make it from scratch. You'd start out with this kind of solution, and then you'd add, like if you wanted to make butterscotch pudding, you put brown sugar in here. If you wanted to make chocolate, you'd add chocolate to this mix. Okay, now over here, this is starting to get really nice. Can you see this? I'm just going to lift this up. We've got a foam starter here. Can you see that in the mirror? No? Can you see it now? You guys need to squish in a little bit. You guys can see it, right? All right. So what I'm going to do now to this mix is I'm going to start adding about a tablespoon of sugar at a time. This is going to kind of stabilize this and make it sweeter and stiffer. All right. So I'm going to just add a little bit of this at a time and let this mix in. Meanwhile, if you're making a pudding like this, you've got to kind of stay near it and constantly be stirring it. Right. Now I know this solution is also going to need some butter. It's going to need about 3 tablespoons of butter, and it's going to need some lemon juice to give it that lemon flavor. So I'm going to get my butter all ready to go. I'm cutting off 3 tablespoons of butter. 1, 2, 3. That's going to be ready to go. And I'm going to measure out 1/2 cup of lemon juice. Meanwhile, I'm stirring, and you might want to use a nonstick pan for this too so that it doesn't burn easily. Oops, I still have a little bit of water in there. So 1/2 cup of lemon juice on the counter at eye level. And so again, this is where you see time management coming into play, and you're going to have this down when you're doing your meal for your family or your friends at home. Time management is really important because you have to have everything come out at the same time when you're sitting down for dinner. So, checking on my crust, I've got this going, I've got this going. And of course you can always them until it's your meal. Might be able to make a salad ahead. We're going to start talking about meal management projects fairly shortly because I like to give you a lot of time to start planning for that. We'll be in the lab a couple of times to plan for that as well. We do have a lab this Friday because it's Ram's Cafe again. So we'll be in the lab on Friday. Okay, now this is sort of a milky looking like substance right now, but this is going to change. But as you can see, it doesn't happen instantaneously. It has to cook here, and that starch in there has to swell and start absorbing the water, and that's going to be what's going to thicken it. Okay, let's look at this now. Can you see that? How thick and white it is? And it's actually not even dropping off the whip. So I'm going to just add my vanilla now. Give it some flavor, a little bit more flavor. That in there. And then this actually is done. So I'm going to just turn this off, and I'm going to use that at the very end. Now my solution here is starting to change color a little bit. I'm checking my pie crust because it's beeping. I'm going to actually leave that in for about 3 more minutes so it gets a little bit browner than it is. So again, it's starting to slowly change now. I'm getting a little different color, but it's almost going to become like a clear, see-through kind of look, and it's going to be very, very thick. So it takes a little bit of a while to do that. And the process of when starch swells and thickens is called what? It was on your test. Who remembers? Starts with a G. Gelatinization, yes. So, when starch in flour or in cornstarch swells and thickens, it's called gelatinization. Right? Again, you don't want this up too high when you're doing it because you don't want it to burn. You want to be constantly stirring it. And the other thing is you have to be very careful when you're working with sugar solutions on the stove, because if they ever touched your skin, they would burn you very badly. So you've got to be very careful. Like making candy, for instance, those are sugar solutions that you use actually a thermometer with to get up to a really high temperature. And depending on the temperature that you have, it determines like what kind of candy you're going to get a lot of the time. So again, you have to be really careful.
We make that right now.
This here, no, this would not become candy because it has the thickening agent in there. What candy is usually is sugar and water and a flavoring of some kind. And you know, like when you cook sugar on the top of the stove, it browns, it becomes like caramel. That's, you know, and then we no longer do the candy unit. When I first was here years ago, we had a candy unit that we did. But nutritionally, it's not the best thing for you. And again, this is probably, but this, again, is a skill-based course. So we try to teach you different skills so that you can do these different kind of projects. Now, it's starting to turn even more, and these little clumps of clearness are coming in, so the gelatinization is starting to take place, and now it's going to probably happen very, very quickly after this. But I'm going to take my pie crust out before it gets too much farther along. So here's my pie crust. I'm going to change my stove over to broil. Can you see the change in color now? It's really getting a little bit darker, and it's getting thicker. Oops. So look at the change in color now. It's not that milky white color anymore, and it's getting really, really thick. And at this point, what I'm supposed to do is I'm supposed to let this cook for 1 minute more in that boiling stage. And again, this is where you have to be really careful. And, oh, you might want to watch, you don't get popped at. Because if that hits us, that's going to be, see how thick that is now? It's like this globular mass. And pudding is that way because it thickens with that starch, and that's a chemical reaction taking place. Science working. at its finest right here, right now. Okay, so my minute is almost up. Now, once my minute is up, I'm going to add my butter. And I don't have to melt it because what's going to happen? It's going to melt when it goes into this hot solution, isn't it? So